Hello and welcome to episode 3 of my 3ds Max beginner tutorial series. Apologies for being slightly late, but as I'm sure you all know, the internet was leaking stupid everywhere yesterday, so I just thought it was best to wait. In this episode, I will be focusing on creation of standard primitives, nothing too complex, so let's just jump right into it. You're going to want to be over here in the upper right corner. From this first set of little boxes, you're going to want to be in Create. From the second set, Geometry, and then from this drop down, Standard Primitives. You can create in any of these viewports here, but I'm going to be working mostly in Perspective. Go ahead and select Sphere, because this one's one of the easiest ones to create. One simple movement. Click where you want the center to be, drag out for the radius, and release. That's it. By default, it's going to be setting the name of the primitive with a number after it, 1, 2, 3, and it will assign a random color every single time, just so you don't get, mixed up with everything. You may be wondering, after you have this, like these 3 balls made, I want to reselect the center one. Oh, what? I can't? What's up with that? It's because you're still in create mode right now. To get out of that, you can just either right click and it will drop out and let you start selecting again, or you can just select any of the little options up in the main toolbar, and then you can start selecting and modifying however you want. If you want to create something at a specific spot, just pull out this little rollout for keyboard entry, and you're going to have X, Y, Z. Of course, this will be different for every object, but that's just its world position. And then for this one, it would just be its radius, which is 22. And then hit create, and then it'll create one centered around 999 with a radius of 22. Moving on to box. This one's a little more complex. First, with your first click and drag, you're going to be creating the length and the width. Then after you release it, then you'll be creating the height. With one more click, you will set that in. That's the difference between a box and a cube. With the box, you have more freedom to do this. With the cube, all the sides are going to be locked, so it's always going to be just a perfect cube, one set click and drag, like with the sphere. And then some other objects, such as the cone, will actually require 3 movements: base, radius, height, and then top radius, which you can make a point, or you can just flare out freakishly big. Then click to set that in. When you create in any other viewport, for this one it's going to create just along this plane here, but if, say, I made this in the front viewport, it's going to align it to that view. So as you can see, it's actually creating it with respect to the front viewport. It's always going to be in whatever viewport it is, as if you were seeing it from the top view. So that's how it's always going to be oriented. Let's see. When you're creating, you're going to see this little thing up here called auto grid. What that'll do is they'll bring up this little axis here. Axis. Oops. Actually, I want a box. And at first, when a lot of people are messing with this, they don't notice anything. They're just like, what? It's just creating things like normal. It's not snapping to a grid or anything. That's not actually what it does. What it does is it works along the geometry of the other objects. So if you see how it's moving here, when I'm moving over this object, it'll create an artificial plane and create out from that along whatever geometry I have my mouse over. really quite handy and fun. And just toggle on and off like that. You may have noticed all these little options here, but then when you go back to select your objects, hey, they're not there. What's up with that, homie? What you gonna do, blah. Up here under modify, and there you're actually gonna see all your little options. Length, height, all those can be edited more from here, including segments. Now, this isn't going to be a big deal now when you're first working on things, but if you turn on edge faces, then you'll notice as I'm turning these up, it's creating little slices in these. This affects how detailed your models are. The higher it goes up, more detail you're going to have. But it's I'll get into it more later, but it's a fine balance between geometry and detail, because I mean, a lot of people when they first start out just have a tendency to just crank everything up and make everything really highly detailed. That really cranks up your render times, because a lot of people will make things and it won't be that detailed. It'll be something they can do with maybe like 1/10 of what they're using, and then they'll be like, why is it taking so long to render? And it's because you have it way up too high. That's just kind of something you got to learn as you go along, and clean up for certain things too. I mean, you may be going through turning up the models, and then you're just going to go through, clean up your geometry later. I'll go into a video about that later on. But I just figure it's something that you should be aware of. There's tons of other types here too. Standard cylinders, geosphere, which is kind of like a sphere, except it's more like cubey, uses triangles. I gotta say cubey and then it says triangles, but you know what I mean. Plane, it's just a simple 2D plane. That's it for creating like a ground. Then you have a teapot, which is just sort of like the standard, thing for 3ds Max, sort of like the monkey head if any of you use Blender. When you create the teapot, it's actually kind of cool. It comes up with little toggles for all the little sections of it, of what you want to be there or not. Body, handle, spout, lid. I don't know, it's not a big deal, but I find that interesting and weird, whatever. And when you're creating things too, you'll notice this little smooth option. What that does is that tries to even things out. For example, if I had the geometry lower, I mean, you're going to see it looks a little blockier. With smooth off, you're just going to see the raw angles, both smooth on. It just kind of attempts to, smooth those out. I guess unless you're doing something where you really want it jagged like that, it's always just best to keep it on. But I guess that's it for now. I mean, I've gone over all the standard primitives. As usual, if you have any questions or comments, leave it in the description. Or if you're viewing this on Reddit, leave it over there, because I tend to check there more than here. Which reminds me, for anyone seeing this on YouTube, this is actually part of a subreddit that I have going. There's a link in the description. You'll see a list of all my videos there, and you can ask questions there about other beginner stuff, and see if you can't get help from other people that are learning, or me if I have the time. I guess I'll see you in the next video.
Bye.